Hi everybody, ready for week 8? The topic of the week is immunity. I expect that you already know something about immunity from previous biology courses. Some of you probably know a great deal about immunity, but all we really want is to understand how immunity helps us overcome infectious diseases and how we can use immunity without getting sick by creating vaccines. There's definitely a downside to immunity. It's like fighting a war in your backyard. Whether it's the enemy or the home team, there's a lot of damage done. Sometimes the problem is not the disease, it's the body's reaction to it. People who become the sickest from COVID are those people who have an overwhelming cytokine storm that's so over the top they wind up fighting for every breath. That's not the virus, that's the body's immune response. Inflammation is another part of the immune system that can be helpful but also very destructive. That's why sometimes people are given steroids to battle COVID. It's to dampen down the immune response and help them get well. I keep using COVID as an example, but I read about it all the time. The reason that men and obese people and older people die of COVID at higher rates is because they also have higher levels of inflammation. We'll be talking about that more in the weeks to come. I have 2 really nice newspaper articles that I think you'll enjoy. One's about inflammation, and the other is about whether masks can act as a way to immunize us against disease. It's a nice way to introduce Edward Jenner and how he used common knowledge to improve upon variolation to create immunity to smallpox. But here's an intriguing idea. The masks that we're wearing might be creating some herd immunity by delivering a lower, safer dose of the virus. That is variolation. Variolation in which the person is exposed to the actual disease, but hopefully in a lower, less dangerous dose, is not the same as vaccination, in which immunity is stimulated without risk of developing the disease. But immunity is important for another reason in microbiology. The ELISA test is based on the antigen-antibody reaction. For viral diseases and some bacteria, growing the infectious agent in the lab is impossible, but you can see if the person is mounting that very specific immune response to the antigen you suspect. That's become the basis for all types of serology tests, what antigens and antibodies are detectable in the plasma. We will do a virtual ELISA for our lab and then talk about point-of-care tests. You might do point-of-care tests every day if you work in the ER or you do pregnancy tests or rapid streps, but there are dozens of different types of point-of-care tests. It's called that because the test is done at the point of care, at the patient's bedside or in the doctor's office. It isn't sent to the lab. Although I have to say that the lab does use point-of-care tests because they're quick and easy. The advantage of point-of-care tests is that they're fast. You get your answer usually in just a few minutes, but they're expensive. And they're only answering one question. For example, if someone comes in and you suspect they have the flu during flu season, you might do a point-of-care test to see if it's positive. Say it comes back negative. You know they don't have the flu, but they're still sick, and you don't know why. It also doesn't tell you how sick they are. If the test is positive, you don't know how much virus they have. It's usually a qualitative test, yes or no, not a quantitative test, how much. I thought it would be fun to do a discussion board on a point-of-care test that you might have used or heard of. And if you don't know anything about it, I think it'll be fun for you to research, and you'll be surprised at how many of them there are. This is also a great opportunity to work in a discussion of sensitivity and specificity, 2 big considerations for any lab test, but especially point of care. This is in the news a lot now also because they're coming out with point of care tests for COVID, but some of them aren't very sensitive. And I've heard that some of the tests, especially the PCR or polymerase chain reaction, are too sensitive. They pick up positives and then later the person tests negative. The question is, did they ever have COVID, or was it just a passing COVID viral particle in their nose? They got picked up on a swab and amplified into a positive result. Lastly, you have your third Teach the Class quiz on enteric pathogens. Same rules as before, 15 questions in 20 minutes. And remember, you have the Teach the Class slides in PDF format, so you can print them out and use them for a reference. It's a completely open note quiz. We do have a lot to do this week, but most of it's really simple, like reading an article or watching a video and filling out a worksheet. And I hope it'll be so interesting that you'll enjoy it. Remember the trade-off. You're not spending your time memorizing and studying for high stakes tests. So instead, we do multiple assignments and quizzes that are lower stakes and less pressure. I have had some frustrated students this week about how to make the lab work or how to submit an assignment. One piece of advice I have for you, if you're struggling to find out where to submit something, just try clicking on the title. That should open the assignment folder or the Google Drive or the YouTube video. If you're getting frustrated, just stop and send me an email or post your question in the discussion board, and someone will answer pretty quickly. It isn't worth getting upset because that usually does not help you. It doesn't help me figure out technology. It makes it worse. One more thing I want to remind you of, registration for the winter and spring semesters starts on Monday. If you have any questions about what courses you need for transferring or applying to nursing school or any other allied health program, I'm happy to look over your transcript and give you my advice. Send me an email and we'll set something up. I think that's everything. Have a great week.